Seniority should never be the sole purpose in any wage benefit or increase. But then again, on the other hand, I don't believe that we should hold them to a standard that if the child is not learning, then that will cost you financially, because there are some kids out there that just, they're not gonna do it. They dig their heels in and they're not gonna do it. I've known kids that you can ask them the questions, they know all about it, but will they do it in school? No. They won't, just because they already know this stuff, so why not have a little fun and you know, get back at the teacher for whatever. So holding the standard to those teachers about their kids learning or not learning, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. You know, it's our job to put that stuff out there. If they take it, fine. Oh, you. I would just get on the road.
Thank you. I have a question. That there's 2 or 3 that go along with the same idea of supporting the superintendent and the job that he's done over the last several years. And there are several who've asked the question along this line. So maybe you would like to, Dan, we're going to start with you, go the other way, then come back this way. So we're going to start with Dan Raap. I'm sorry, I forgot we had 2 Dans. All right.
I think the superintendent has done a really great job. You're actually sitting in a room where I personally witnessed him peel the floor off 3 times. And that was just the start. We've implemented CRT. We've implemented some changes up at the high school. I think that's responsible for some of the academic awards that we've gotten. The all-day kindergarten was a decision that we made based on what we heard from our staff and our teachers. I think he's implemented some really great changes. But remember, with all change is not easy. Change is difficult. But I think that our superintendent's done an excellent job, and I believe that the direction he has set us in will be one that we can continue on and be successful. And so I think that there's going to be some issues that come up anytime you have an organization where you're the largest employer in the district, and
time's up.
Thank you.
Well, I have to tell you, Mr. Raap and I differ in this opinion in that I think the superintendent can do a much better job professionally, showing some professionalism in his day-to-day operations and how he handles employee issues would be, or is one of my concerns. Maybe he has done some of these good things, but at the same time, I believe he needs to be held accountable for his actions and what he's done to essentially, in my opinion, harm the school and create, you know, it's his job to create a more positive work environment, to make it a place of learning and appreciation and a positive environment for everyone, not a select few. Thank you.
Regarding supporting the superintendent.
Well, I'll state like I stated last time, I have not witnessed anything myself, but some of the things I have heard, to me, is uncalled for. That should not be a way an individual acts. You've got a contract when it comes to these teachers. You should have some sort of contract when it comes to these students. Everybody should know they're on the same page. As far as I'm concerned, there's been a lot of money wasted over bullying. we don't accept it from our students, we shouldn't accept it from the administration either. And, you know, I can only be honest with you, that's not right. That money can be spent in better ways to support our children instead of fighting. Our job is to remove those hurdles, not put more in the teacher's way.
Thank you. We have several who have written along the same line. Oh, I'm sorry. Jeepers. Thanks for waking me up.
I believe in many instances our superintendent has done a great job. There's a lot of positive things that have happened over the last few years. The biggest problem that I've seen, and some of the others have alluded to it, is some inconsistencies and some issues with the way the relationship is dealt with. And a parent, and this is from an outsider, not knowing all the facts, but apparent differences in the way certain things are handled depending on who the individual is. We've seen it in a number of cases in the 2 years that I've been going to the school board meetings. We've had some issues with people that are not getting the support that they need from the administration. One of the recent ones was a child with some learning issues that wasn't getting the support that they needed. So there's always room for improvement, and nobody's perfect, but we need to work together, and we need to try to do the right thing, and we need to make sure that we have all of the facts from both sides before we make the choice and decision. Thank you.
Thank you. My apologies. I had a senior moment there. Several of the things also are dealing with some of the activities that's happened in the past with communications, and want to know how you might want to improve communications between the staff and the administration. Things that you might really want to do, that if you were a school board member, what would you want to do to help improve communications between staff and the school board and the superintendent? So we're going to start with you this time.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, or at least give me a nod, is there a chain of command that the teachers have? I mean, is there somebody you go to first and then you move on up?
Not heard of it, never bus.
So it's just, you guess whoever's gonna do the best for you, and you go to them. Well, that's sad. So there's one way to fix it. The teachers need to know that they have a chain of command that they can go through. I've never worked a job where I didn't have a chain of command. All right, I can go to either my first line supervisor, or in this case, the principal. If I am not happy with that answer, and I feel my concern has not been looked at, then I go to my next, which would be my manager or supervisor. And of course, I work at Hanford, so you know the chain out there is quite long. And so, but I mean, there's always that chain of command. So it shouldn't be ask one person and then go, and surely you can tell me I'm not speaking loud enough. Who's over there doing that? Okay. So anyway, I think one way to get that done is to let the teachers know they have a chain of command.
Okay, I think our time's up. Thank you.
I was talking with you.
Yes, please.
All of us.
Yes, please.
I need to agree and disagree with Ivan on this. One of the things that I've noticed and I've always seen is when you have issues in policies, it usually is a problem with interpretation or somebody not being aware of an issue or a policy. And I know there's been some things where, oh yes, that's our policy, but you say, well, can I see that in writing? Because I'm trying to research and trying to find out what the rules are, what the policies are, and it's not in writing. So one of the things If there is a problem, if there is an issue, there should be a policy in writing, and the school board should be aware of it, as well as the teachers should be aware of it, and the administration should be aware of it. So a lot of this, if there is any kind of issue, I think we need to discuss it between the administration, the school board, and teachers' representatives, and make sure that we have a policy that is acceptable or at least known by all and followed fairly and equitably.
And signed up.
Thank you.
Well, I'd like to differ just a little bit and put a little bit of, I've been on the board for 10 years and I've been around the school district for that long. There is a chain of command. Teachers have a principal, from the principal to the superintendent. There's a double chain actually because they also have a union representative. So there's a chain that can go up. If you have a problem, you go to your principal. If the problem can escalate, it can escalate on to the superintendent. On the other side of it, all the teachers are represented by the WEA, and they also have a chain there that can follow and protect. So there is that in there. Are there going to be confusions that come up sometimes? Yes, there is. And are there going to be difficulties? I've seen situations where there were difficulties in following the principal to the superintendent. Some people felt blocked there. I've also seen situations where that same teacher or a teacher felt like going through their union representative provided a block too, and they decided not to do that and moved over. But there are some chains there. Could anything be better? As Mr. John said, yes, everything can always be better. But we do have a chain there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think communication is important. It's how you resolve issues and get things done. I think listening to your teacher with their problems and concerns alleviates probably majority of those issues. Not giving a placard answer, showing that real respect and care for what is being said, I think it goes a long way. Let's treat one another with respect. Let's move forward in that fashion, and we will see improvement in our relations with teachers and staff and the school as a whole. So, chain of command, okay, there has to be a chain of command. We all know that, we should be following that chain if you're not satisfied with your answers, but let's show some respect and dignity and trying to resolve the issue before it goes that far.
Thank you. Dan, we're going to start with you on this one. If you could implement one reform within existing resources by reprioritizing funds and staff time, what would your priority reform be?
Just so I'm clear, what you're talking about is if we're able to add a program or strengthen a program within the district.
Dan, we're going to start with this Daniel this time. Daniel, sorry. Well, he was talking, so I was, okay.
Wrong Dan, sorry about that.
Wrong Dan, sorry, Dan.
Okay, as far as the schools and the reprioritizing, I do know that because of the evaluations done on the schools across the state, our elementary school is listed as a priority school, where the middle and high school are actually not in that listing. Therefore, any prioritizing of funds that would have to be changed, to me, the elementary school would have to have the priority.
Okay, now Dan.
Well, as a matter of fact, we're looking at some of that right now because as the state begins to pay for all of basic education, such as all-day kindergarten that cost our district the last 4 years $175,000 a year, some funds are going to become available. We need to make sure of two things. Number one, the things that the state is not going to pay for anymore because of the law on the basic education. We need to cover those things so we don't degrade the program. But what I would like to do and what we're pushing for, I'm trying to push for, is that we put more money into technology. I have sat with several presentations from Richland, and Prosser. And there's absolutely no reason why we can't go ahead now, given the fact that costs of computers and laptops have went down, that we can't do more of that at an earlier or younger age and implement that. So if I had one thing that I would like to see us do is, I really want us to fully support that, to push that as far ahead that technology as we can get, so that our kids, when they get to WSU or they get on to college or to trade schools or some other place, that they're able to compete and perform.
Thank you.
Well, I agree with Mr. Rapp. I think technology is a great thing to probably fund, but I also agree that, you know, let's get together, let's talk about what it is we think is priority for our students. And if technology is one of those, then let's fund technology. Let's make this school the best it possibly can be by collaborating with one another, coming up with some solutions on where, you know, what the priorities are now and in the future. And that's, that I think is important for our school and our district.
Thank you. Heather?
Prioritizing, and I understand what they're all saying with that, and I agree with it, but anytime you get the state involved, there's always strings attached to those monies. Okay? If we need something, then let's go out and let's show these kids how they can do it. And I don't mean by making them little Amway salesmen. Hopefully nobody sells Amway here, but all right. There are ways to invest some of this money that we make here in dividend-paying stocks that will pay this school. There's a school in Dufur, Oregon that is self-sufficient. As of today, they don't ask them state for any money. They fund all their own programs because they have this in place. All right? And all we got, if you train your children to do things like that, there's nothing they can't do. All right? We need to get back to the basics, and I agree. You use that later. I think you're
Thank you. I tried to cover most of the questions that you gave in some general area. I'm hoping that we covered the gist of what you wanted to know. And I certainly appreciate these gentlemen coming here and being on the hot seat. You asked them some pretty tough questions. And we do appreciate you. You know, I think sometimes we forget to really be thankful for those in our community who serve us. It's real easy to point a finger at them when things go wrong, but I find if I really want to bring about change, I start with positive things and stay positive. And so I encourage you, school board members, to come with a positive attitude, and you'll bring about a positive change. I love Benton City. Glad you're here. Thank you for coming.
You didn't do this. You point like this, there's three fingers pointing at you. Always point like that. Hey.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. And we saved the best to last. So we're going to ask if all of those who are running for city council and we'd ask that they would all please come and join us.
Anybody on city council want to ride an hour?
Ladies, I'm sorry that we waited till last year. This is meeting to thank you. I guess they're so pleased with all of you. We are thankful for each one of you who serve, and I think all three of you are present. Well, no, two of you are serving. One will be shortly, as no one is running against you, Linda. And we thank you for the services that you're doing. So we're going to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about yourself and your goals for the city. Well, how about if we start with you? Sir, how about that? Thank you, Mary.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you to the Chamber for putting this on. My name is Mary Lettau, and I am already serving on the council. I was appointed last fall when an opening came up, and I applied for it. I had been going to the meetings for about a year and a half, and decided it was time that I needed to start giving back to my community in that way. My husband and I have lived here for over 28 years. Our kids grew up here. My daughter was part of the fire department, volunteer, for about 3 years, and loved it. She would, in fact, because we lived very close to the fire department, so it was she would race to be the first one there. And she has continued that in Montana. She is now on the volunteer fire department in the small community where she lives and is married in Montana. So I'm very aware of a lot of the things that have happened in Denton City and what goes on in Denton City, and it was time like Ivan said, you roll up your sleeves and you start giving back and you start getting involved. And so that's the reason that I decided to be part of or to put my name in the hat for the council. And I would like to continue that. I've only been on there for a year. I am a newbie and I'm still learning the ropes. And I do learn quickly, but my desire is to listen to the people of it. As Ivan also said, this is your community and I want to be a voice for you. It's not what I want, it's what you want. And I think most of us in this economy are very concerned about taxes and how much we're paying and trying to make ends meet. And so I believe very strongly that the city needs to stay within their means. They need to learn to use the money wisely that we pay. And so that is one of my biggest things, is just to make sure that the money that you give goes to, in the best possible ways, can be spent. So my eyes are always open in that direction. And anyway, I want to serve you, and I will do my best to do that. And I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Ms. Lisa?
Hi. I'm running unopposed for position 1, and I've had the opportunity to serve for 5 years. 5 years ago, I shut my classroom door on the last day of school, and then I went over to the auditor's office to take on the opportunity for serving on city council. I've had a great time doing this. I've tried to be, I think my part would be more the questioner. I ask lots of questions. I want to help our ordinances reflect the purpose of our ordinance, and I want to make sure I edit, and I also look to make sure that our vision is reflected in what we agree to. And I've had an opportunity to serve with several people. I didn't want to be part of the problem, so I decided to be, again, part of the solution. And I love participating in goal setting. I have an eye for change and for growth, and I've seen changes that take place. At times, I'm surprised how long a single change takes, like a year to get a bench on the bike path. But on the other hand, I've seen things come about that had never taken place before, like wrapping up litigation, or having the bike path and the irrigation, the city and the irrigation work together to have that bike path be in place. I've seen lights on the tennis courts, microphone system downtown. We've added a budget item for our parks that's now improvement and not just maintenance. And it's not been done by me. I'm just the person that says I agree, and I cast my vote for things that I believe in. I spoke to my students several times. I asked my students, like, what improvements have they noticed and what would they like to see? And they've asked me about a pool, and I had to reflect and tell them the history behind the pool. And they asked me about soccer fields, about dilapidated buildings, about the skate park, what's our projected plans. They know about timeline and solving problems and working towards solutions. So we talk about problems and solutions. And they've given me great ideas to take back to council. So I not only represent you in your vote, but I also consider the students that I work for, and I work for the community, and I work for the citizens of Benton City. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Ms. Linda?
Thank you. I'm, of course, hoping to be a new member of the council, and I assume that I may be since Desiree backed out to us tonight. I want to give you a little bit of my background. I have a master's degree in science, and for the past almost 35 years, I've worked in the nuclear industry. I've worked on analysis, regulation, and management of nuclear facilities, both in the United States and in the Soviet Union, Russia. And I've worked for over 20-some years as my own boss in consulting in that field. I've worked for several states. I've worked for Indian tribes. I've worked for several cities, different countries, and the European Commission and the International Atomic Energy Agency. I've been on an Academy of Sciences panel, and I've worked as one of 4 people who were appointed on the American side on the joint Russian-American panel for plutonium disposition, and I was one of 2 of the civilian members. I'm also a business owner here in Benton City. I have wine country cottages and a 4-plex and my home on Bell Avenue, and heavily invested here, and I'm very dedicated and committed to getting this city to move forward. I've been on the Planning Commission and the Economic Development Council for about 6 years.
Thank you. We'll start with you this time, Linda, on the question, what changes would you like to see in the next 2 years?
Well, I have some experience from the Planning Commission that hasn't been very positive in what I've seen. What I would really like to work on, since I have been a regulator for most of my life, I would like to look at the way the city does their permitting and licensing for new businesses. I think it's been very difficult for businesses to expand, and I think we definitely need more flexibility in the way we interpret city codes and allow these businesses to expand or improve. That's one thing, and I guess I would also like to see Benton City develop as the gateway to Red Mountain, because we really have a huge asset here if we can just develop it in a way that will be attractive to wine tourists so that they don't turn right at the bridge and head to Red Mountain. We'd like to attract them here as well.
Thank you. We'll let you go, Ms. Lisa.
I kind of already mentioned about the next 2 years. I do look at the parallels between school board and also the city council, because they're both in a position of making decisions, following ordinances, helping the citizens and the community. And one thing I do appreciate, with everybody's various opinions on city council, we do have a litigation. We have a lawyer present at our meetings. And we really do listen to what they say, and we also listen to what citizens say that show up on the 1st and 3rd Tuesday of each month. If you'd like to come, you're invited. And we do, as we ask questions or we seek understanding or try to draw up a contract, we ask the attorney to do so for us or to make suggestions. And I've found that there's a lot of ways that we can improve, but a lot of things that we do well. And one thing that we do well is that we develop ordinances that in an attempt to be legal and to have clarification. And that ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure later. And by having an attorney present, you may think it's costly, but by having one at each meeting, it helps. So it's just a thought.
Thank you. Ms. Mary.
I'm going to make this short and sweet. I have to say that Linda pretty much covered it for me. I want to see us bringing in more business and keeping them here and encouraging them to stay open. And if we can do that, I mean, that's going to be a huge start for Benton City in the next couple of years.
Thank you. How might the city and the council improve communications to other organizations and businesses in the city? And Lisa, we're going to start with you this time, and then go to Miss Marion.
I was listening to the potential candidates for the Port of Kennewick, and I heard a great idea about inviting them to our meetings or asking for suggestions for that dialogue. You know, what is the timeline envisioned for them within our city, and how does that reflect within the vision and timeline that we have that could be incorporated with the Kennewick Port? I appreciate the way that the businesses are, binding together to communicate with the city council, and I think us being more transparent in our policies and permits, and I would seek clarification about what those should look like, so that they'll be equitably distributed and appear more fair and be more fair with people that are trying to start business.
Thank you. Ms. Mary. Linda gets to be last.
I think for me, personally, I would like to get around to more of the businesses and talk to the owners and find out what they want to do, and to be able to communicate with them, to hear their heart and their desires. I would like them also maybe to come to our council meetings so that they can be more a part of what's going on, the decisions that are being made, because if we don't hear from them, then our decisions are made by what we know or what we hear or the laws. And so I like to hear their heart. I like to hear what people have to say. So for me, like I said, my desire is to get around to the businesses and talk to the owners.
Thank you.
Well, I guess what I would like to do, and have done actually, is forge some alliances with the Red Mountain ABA. And I also, as I said, I'm on the Benton City Economic Development Council, and I've reached out to Prosser to look at how they handle their website, things like that. We need to be able to come up into the 21st century when it comes to electronics and getting our word out there on the website, encouraging people to come here.
Thank you. And I thank you for using the microphone, ladies. Your soft voice sometimes doesn't carry out. That is about the end of our questions. The other questions that we had all fit within those, and I think you've answered them really very well. And I know since I get a chance to work with you, I appreciate each of you very much, and find them very nice to work with. They listen to our complaints and to our criticisms and to our suggestions, which we try to make positive, and we greatly appreciate that, since I represent the EDC and the council. So thank you very much. This concludes tonight. Let's give these ladies a real nice hand of applause. And thank you guys for coming, and I hope that you've learned good things this evening.